Hi, everybody. This is so exciting. We have our 100 participants on Zoom, and we are streaming live on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Kelly Crosby, and I'm the principal at Wentworth School, which is our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade school, and one of your panelists this evening for the K-5 Parent Forum. I will have my colleagues who have joined as panelists introduce themselves.
I'm Sandy Prince, Superintendent of Schools. Nice to be here tonight. Thank you very much.
I'm Diane Netto. I'm the Assistant Superintendent here in Scarborough.
I'm Kelly Martin, Principal of Blue Point School.
Allison Marchese, Director of Special Services. Welcome.
I'm Brem Stoner. I'm the Assistant Principal at Wentworth.
Hi, I'm Jessica Steele, Principal at Pleasant Hill School.
Hi, and I'm Ann Lovejoy, Principal at Acorn School.
So again, we're thrilled to have you here with us, and we are going to work through this parent forum together. This is exciting new learning for us. So thanks for being along for the journey. I hope that you had an opportunity to review the agenda that we sent out ahead of time that had the link in it that you used to join this Zoom meeting. We're going to use about 30 minutes to answer your questions that were sent in ahead of time on the question and answer Google form. And we've structured that into a presentation, and we're just going to take turns and share that. Ms. Lovejoy is going to share her screen in just a few moments, so you'll see what we see. And then we'll be sure to save about 15 minutes at the end for any open Q&A for items that we did not get to. It doesn't look like we actually have the chat feature on this meeting. So Diane, do we?
We don't, because it's in a webinar format. So okay. It's a different kind of setup.
Okay, great. So what we recommend is if questions come up as you're watching through this presentation, just jot them down and maybe we'll get to them through the slides. And if not, there will be time at the end for open Q&A. So with that, I think Ms. Lovejoy, if you could share your screen. Bear with us for just a second here. Okay, so information for parents, caregivers, and students. And go right ahead and advance to the next slide, please. So this is really what is grounding us in our work in this meeting here this evening. This quote: "When children see calm adults in the midst of the COVID-19 storm, resilience builds and stress is buffered." And we really appreciate all of your patience as we've been working through the planning and design process for this upcoming school year. We know there are many things that you wanted and needed answers to yesterday. And our goal here tonight is to have you leave this webinar feeling like you have the information that you need to start the school year with your K-5 students.
Thank you, Mrs. Crosby. I want to start by thanking all of the families who were able to complete the survey for the Cohort Needs. These are our current numbers. So I just want to review, I won't read all of the numbers, but just want to review how these cohorts are structured. So Cohort A are students who are coming on Monday and Tuesday. Cohort B, Thursday and Friday. Cohort C will be our remote students, 100%, and we've asked those students in that cohort to commit for the marking period, which for K-5 is the trimester. And then we also have our Cohort D students who have an individualized schedule, and they are included in these numbers. So all students in Cohort D are included in Cohorts A or B or C. So thank you to the families that gave us that information. We've worked really hard to make sure that there's a balance to each of those. Obviously, when you look at the numbers, it might not seem quite that way. But looking at those cohorts, again, this is following the Board of Education approved hybrid model. The first question is about the start of the year, and that is, how are placement decisions being made, and when will we know who our child's teacher is? So we are still assessing staff and student needs, particularly around health and safety. We want to get that information out to you as soon as possible. So as soon as we have a really good picture of who is returning, and we'll be able to make final placement decisions from there. We're also really being careful about structuring, softening the social transition. We know that obviously all of our schools closed in mid-March, and we want to make sure that when we're looking at placement, that the students are with familiar peers as they join us in a few weeks.
All right, so this is going to be a little tricky because we are doing K-5 information. So some of the questions are around kindergarten screening, and much of our kindergarten screening will look the same, and a lot of it will be at a different time or place than it was in the past. So we still will be using the Dial 4 as our assessment tool, but our primary focus is going to be to build relationships and make sure that students feel safe and welcome and know what the school is like before we start assessing them or screening them in any way. This is different from what we've done in the past, but we feel like, given the times, that we really need to get kids into school feeling safe and comfortable and warm and welcome, and to get the best information we can from the screening. So the screening will take place later in September, and you as parents will get those results, but we will not be able to use that information as we have in the past to build classrooms. But we think with the hybrid model and with the different kind of school year we're having, that this will be okay. Again, social and emotional health is our greatest emphasis for the moment, for the year. We want to make sure that every child and parent feels safe and secure in where they're going for the day. There are different transition activities that will take place for kindergarten, first and second grade students, as well as grade 3 students. After this presentation, the link to the presentation will be on the school board website. And as a parent, you can go in and see each of these different links to find out what's happening. We are proposing, instead of individualized appointment times that we've had at the K2 level, that we're doing very small groups of kids for a couple hours to get used to being in school and things like that. And grade 3 and 4, 5 has also different activities planned to make sure that kids are transitioning back into school as safely and as calmly and as securely as possible.
Okay, the next question continues with the social and emotional health of our students. So around how will our students be supported socially and emotionally, and is it possible, or is it the same for in-person and remote students? So the answer to that is absolutely yes. That is a primary focus of our reopening plan. We had a SEL START committee that created a plan for K-12, and the K-5 pieces to that prioritize making sure that we know our students and that our students feel safe and valued and basically well known in their school and in their classrooms. That also means that we're connecting in a meaningful way with our families during this transition. And each school will have a different way, or each phase level will have a different way of how they do that. As far as it being the same for in-person and remote students, again, the emphasis is on the SEL pieces, no matter how a student is receiving their learning. And so it may look and feel a little bit different, but the emphasis will be on social and emotional learning as we transition back. The next question is around health and safety. So the answer to all three of these is yes, yes, and yes. We will ask students to wear masks, and just as a reminder, this is not a Scarborough rule. This is a CDC requirement. So the state and the Department of Education, or Department of Education and the CDC is requiring that adults and students wear masks and face coverings. Any student ages 5 and above is required to wear a mask to cover their nose and their mouth. If a student has a documented medical behavioral challenge and they're unable to wear a mask, then they'll need to, we'll have an alternative for them. That same rule applies for any staff with a medical or other health reason. Any face shields that are worn have to cover the entire face. They extend below the chin and back to the ears. We strongly encourage parents to get their child used to wearing a mask. There's lots of really kid-friendly videos on YouTube and social stories. So have your child pick out their favorite face covering and decorate it and help build their stamina so that they can wear it while they are in school.
Our next question is also about health and safety, and it is about what is being provided to staff to support their return to on-site teaching. As you know, our staff faced many challenges when we left in March, working from home, and we look forward to having them back working on site. And our START teams especially talked about what we can do to support our teachers, and that is really important to us. So some of the things that will be provided, most importantly, are PPE. And our school department will be providing PPE. The Department of Ed is sending PPE. So all teachers will have a face mask, shield, gloves available to them. Our special education teachers who may require more PPE will have that available to them. So all of that will be prevalent in our schools. Our school nurses will be well armed with PPE. We are providing enhanced technology to our staff to help with any live streaming or recording of lessons, just to make that easier. Hover cams are being replaced to make those projects easier for teachers. We're offering some flexibility on Wednesdays for staff that may be challenged with some childcare issues. As you know, there's a lot of that going around. We're hearing that from parents, and many of our staff are working parents. So there's going to be some flexibility around working from home on those Wednesdays, and which also helps us to do that deep cleaning of the building in between cohorts. And professional development is a really big one. So we are really grateful to our Board of Education who gave us flexibility with additional PD days at the beginning of the school year. I'm grateful to our community as well for being supportive of that, because training is really needed as we prepare for this school year, which is going to be very different than anything we've had before. And that's going to be not only front loaded in the beginning of the school year, but ongoing throughout the school year on those Wednesdays. And our staff are going to be working really hard, and planning is a big piece of that. Another health and safety question, if Cumberland County is green, why aren't we in school full time? And the link below takes us right to those 6 safety pieces that we have to meet to be open, and maybe Diane can speak to that once I finish this question. And how much notice will be given before a change in our learning plan? Should we move from yellow to green or yellow to red? So I know we've spoken about this in previous board meetings, and I think what's been said before is that we don't anticipate a sudden change like we had in March. We don't plan to leave on a Friday afternoon and not return or change. That we will, with the current updates that are happening every 2 weeks, we have a much better read on what's happening in our county and in our state, so that we plan to have much more lead time on what will be happening. And the 6 requirements to be open really limit our ability to be in school full time. The physical distancing alone and the space that we have is really one of the major reasons why we cannot have students in buildings 5 days a week. So that would be a major reason. I don't know, Diane, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, sure, I can. I think if you look at the six qualifiers, it really is the physical distancing that is our biggest limitation. To be more specific, we have to maintain a physical distance in classroom settings for students in all settings of a minimum of 3 feet. The recommendation is 6 feet. Some of you may have been watching our school board meetings this summer. At a very recent meeting, we actually included some visuals of what that actually looks like in each of our school settings. And there is a range that falls anywhere between, I believe it's 8 and 13 desks, spaces that we can max out given the size of our classrooms. Some of our neighboring communities have not been experiencing the same increases in enrollment that Scarborough has. And so other communities may have more available spaces. As most of you know, and we've been talking about over a long span of time, that is not the case in Scarborough. And with our increasing enrollments, we are really maxed out on all of the spaces that we have. We have certainly considered outside spaces, and we will be having some tents on all of our school sites to help with mass breaks for students, and to offer some flex spaces for our students and teachers. However, we do know that we live in Maine, and as such, the weather changes very quickly and from day to day in the fall. And so it is not feasible for us to set up long-term outdoor classrooms. We also do not have the staff available to adequately be able to have indoor classrooms that would meet the distancing requirements, and other classrooms. So whether those be outdoor or even if we were able to lease spaces, we would basically have to double the number of staff that we have, and that is not financially feasible for us to do.
So the next slide is mine, but I feel like it's been pretty well covered. The question is, under what circumstances would K-5 students return to full-time in-person instruction? And really, it's what Diane and Kelly just spoke to. The governor would have to adjust the health and safety requirements, like the social distancing and max group sizes. Those would have to be lifted, and any executive orders related to that by the governor would have to be lifted. So those are the things that would have to happen in order for us to return to a full-time in-person. With regard to health and safety and the cleaning products and the things that we're going to do to keep our schools safe and healthy, well, we have students here. A lot of questions came in about what cleaning procedures are in place to keep students safe. So the classrooms are sanitized nightly. We have our custodial staff are wonderful and so diligent and doing a really great job. In addition to that, the teachers each are being equipped with a cleaning kit. They have started to come in. So in between cohorts, we're looking to have cleaning done if a cohort is changing areas. That's not as much of an issue at the K-5 level as it is for the upper grades who change classes more regularly. And then that Wednesday does give us an opportunity for a deeper clean with fewer people in the building. The second bullet here is, have there been any upgrades to air filtration in the building since the pandemic began? And so I am not an expert, turns out, on air filtration, but we do have some notes here from our facilities director. So I'm just going to share what he stated with you. So I apologize for kind of reading to you for a moment. He stated that the filtration systems are inspected and cleaned annually as required. The use of fans in classrooms. So for Wentworth, this is not an issue because of our new building. We do have a more climate controlled space, but at the K2s, they do not have air conditioning. So I know fans are a regular practice. So the use of fans are not forbidden, but need to be placed so that the breeze isn't blowing germs from one person to another. So that's going to take a little bit more strategy. The question about, does our HVAC system clean the air? No, is the answer to that. It mixes the outside air with the inside air and filters for pollen and particulates, not germs. And then it exhausts the dirty air. So only a surgical center actually sanitizes air. School HVAC systems just aren't equipped to do that. And opening the windows, he's stated, stresses the AC system. So if you don't have AC in the building, of course, open the windows. But if there is an air-conditioned building or area of your building, as the case is at some of the K2 schools, then keeping the windows closed is actually better. The HVAC is going to be run 24/7 to filtrate the air overnight. So that's a change in our regular procedures. And training and supplies are provided for the cleaning process. Diane or Sandy, is there anything that you'd like to add to that around cleaning and HVAC? Pretty well covered. Great.
Great. I think I have the next one, which is how will illness at school be handled and what will students require to return to school if they are out sick? And I want to share a statement as well. We're going to have 2 clinic spaces in each school this year, so that will be a change. One is for sort of a well visit, students who are going to get medications that they may take on a daily basis, and another space that will be for COVID-like symptoms. And we're also going to use the DOE's child feels sick or unwell flowchart to guide that process. So I would defer to that guidance on their website for schools and resources there. If a student does complain of symptoms that may be consistent with COVID-19, or if a teacher observes such symptoms, the teacher will call the school nurse or the main office, and the student will be directed to go to that designated space and be met there by the school nurse or another designee. Upon arrival, we will ask the student to have a mask if he or she does not already have one on, and sanitize and wash hands. And once their disposition is determined, the student will remain in the isolation room until dismissed. So there will be a parent phone call likely at that time. Upon return to school, following an absence due to illness or isolation, again, following that DOE CDC guidance for how long and that kind of a thing, students must be checked at the health office for a post-illness evaluation immediately upon their arrival to school before they go to the classroom. And the next one is, how will the following be handled? Positive cases of COVID-19, staff or students, contact tracing, and maintaining the integrity of separate cohorts at school. So the state requires us to contact the CDC to report a positive case, and we will follow their protocols at the time. And they're very specific if it's a student or a staff member, if it's one portion of our building, all of those pieces, they would direct us on the guidance for next steps. And they also discriminate between casual contact and close contact as part of that. For COVID-19, a close contact is defined as anyone who was within 6 feet of an infected person for at least 15 minutes. As far as contact tracing goes, one recommendation that did come from our guidelines was to have a sign-in log, in each space, so we know which staff and students have been in that space. Certainly we have our daily schedules and we'll be able to determine who's using which space regularly, but especially for our staff who may be coming into a space and students who may be going to access resource room space or a specialist space, having that log helps us to really be clear on our communication. Also, having assigned seating in classrooms and on buses is another step, and we are finalizing those protocols now.
All right, and another thing to add to the health and safety protocols everywhere is hand hygiene. We will be instructing students how to wash their hands like we did in the winter time last year and how you all have done at home, but we'll be continuing to reinforce that and offer that opportunity on a regular ongoing basis, particularly before leaving the classroom area and then upon returning to the classroom area, whether it's for lunch or recess or to go to a service that they may be receiving from special education or speech and language or academic support. So anytime a child is leaving the area that they've been in and returning, they will be asked to wash their hands. So again, that's a big part of the lunch piece as well. Where will students be eating lunch? That's a good question. Each of our buildings is a little bit different. At 8 Corners, we will be eating lunch in the classroom for now, but that may change as things change from the guidelines. I believe Wentworth is eating lunch in the cafeteria, and the other 2 small schools, I believe, are eating lunch in their classrooms, but as we nail down all those other particulars that may change, you'll hear from your building principal if that's changed. Another question was, are students allowed to bring lunch from home? And yes, they are. Students will keep their belongings close to them. We're not using our cubbies at the K2 schools, so their belongings won't be in touch with anybody else's belongings and they will stay separate. So yes, you are definitely allowed to bring lunch from home. Someone want to add something? I heard it. Okay. So will there be recess and what will that look like? Yes, there'll be recess. It will be in smaller numbers of groups because our schools will have half the number of students in them. Our recesses are going to have at least half the number of kids at them. Again, every playground is a little bit different in size and space and what's available. So each building will manage that individually in that regard. But yes, there will be recess. It will, you will need masks on for recess, but the equipment will be available to use. And again, every school is going to have a little bit of an individualized plan for that, but we absolutely will be having recess.
Okay, moving on to transportation. So what will drop off and pickup look like at the schools? We have heard from Sarah Redmond, our transportation director, and she has let each building know where the buses will be dropping off. And what she has done is allowed us to use the bus loops. So cars and buses will not be in the bus loop at the same time, obviously, but the buses will be dropped off at a specific, the kids will be dropped off from the bus at a specific location that allows each school to use the bus loop for parent drop off and pickup. So we're super excited about that. We also want to thank our families for those of you that are able to provide transportation for your child. That did relieve some of the transportation pressure that department had. So about 75% right now at K2 of our families are going to be providing transportation. So we will need to allow a little bit more time, especially in the afternoon, but each school has a different protocol and procedure that we will be communicating with you before school starts. The next question is around the bus route information. So Sarah is finalizing that by Friday. The bus numbers from last year are unlikely to change. So although the state has not finalized the guidelines for the number of riders per bus, we are planning for 1 child per seat. Sometimes it might be possible that siblings can sit together, especially upon parent request if they're on the same bus. The routes are being built with the hope that there's 15 or less per bus. And that's it.
So keeping with transportation, we've had questions about whether students can still be transported to and from their childcare. And this is something that we typically do. And it's my understanding that that is still the same process. If your child goes to Heidi's house or Toddle Inn after school, that's still fine. And we had questions around how to inform school about that. And there will be, well, we know already from a lot of people through the survey what plans are. in terms of childcare, transportation, and those things, there will be an opportunity at the beginning of school to update that information again, because we like you to verify all of that information once school starts because things change. And we also encourage you to let the child care facility know exactly what's happening and when things change, to let both school and child care know, because sometimes those lines get crossed. So that answers that question. A big question comes up around the dismissal times between K2 and Wentworth, and that they get out at the same time, and we have lots of siblings. And we had a pretty good system. Back in the day, we were all in school live and in person. So now that we're getting back to that, people are wondering, how is this all going to work with everybody transporting their own students, or many people transporting their own students. So we're going to work that out again, and we will accommodate that. We would encourage people to try to go to where there may be less congestion in traffic first, and that may be the K2 school. But of course, we know that people are, coming from work or coming from one location, and that may not be the most convenient thing. Sometimes it's not easier to go to Blue Point before you go to Wentworth, because Blue Point's right next to your house. So we will work with whatever you need to do to get your family at the end of the day.
Okay, so on to teaching and learning. Lots of questions about, so what is the schedule going to look like for in-person days and for remote days? So I'm going to speak to Wentworth as an example, and K2 can certainly chime in, but I know that we're working really closely to have our schedules pretty close. So for an in-person day, the major change is that we are including more time for transitions, because we know that it is going to take longer before you leave a classroom, get everybody to clean their hands, get everybody to have what they need, ensure this physical distancing, all of those pieces. And then for the teachers, if a cohort is changing, to wipe down those surfaces for the new group to come in. So because we've included more transition time, and because we've included a specific designated time for like morning meeting and social and emotional health and learning check-in time, we're really focusing on the core subjects outside of that. So our in-person time will be math and reading at 60 minutes each, and allied arts at 60 minutes, and we'll talk more about that specifically to Wentworth. We've kind of pared that down a little bit, and then writing daily. Wednesdays are a half day for everybody remotely, and those days for K-5 will be from 9 to 12, with 8:30 to 9 being like, get up, get dressed, get ready, get logged on. And then 9 to 12, everybody is working remotely. And so the big question is like, okay, that makes sense for the days that our kiddos are in person, if they're cohort A on Monday, Tuesday, or cohort B on Thursday, Friday, but what is my remote kiddo doing? So if I'm cohort A, I'm in person Monday and Tuesday, what's happening on Thursday and Friday when cohort B is in person? And so I think that is explained a little bit more in the next slide. So I'm just going to put a little pin in that for a second about exactly what remote learning will look like. And just answer the question quickly, will there be any consideration to calendar changes due to holidays and vacations? And we've done a close examination of this. And I think that the question is really from like Monday holidays, will there be a, mismatch or an imbalance of days? And really, the students in cohort A only go one day less than the students in cohort B because of like Thanksgiving and vacations and things like that. So it balanced out really nicely. Great. So what will remote learning look like? And in comparison to the spring, what will be the same and what will be different? So K-5, it's a little bit trickier at K-5 than it is at 6-12. Students at the secondary grades are just by their developmental age, able to be more independent. A kindergarten student truly needs a parent or a caregiver sitting right with them to help them log into a Google Meets session, whereas a 6th through 12th grader can log into Google Meets at 9 and then again at 9:40 and then again at 10:15, and they can handle that. So what we're looking to do is have everybody K-5 log in on your remote days at 9:10 for that morning meeting and check-in. That's where attendance is going to happen. That's where social and emotional learning opportunities are going to take place. And that's where teachers are going to spend time going over the plan for the day for both the in-person and the remote learners. Then it's likely that there's going to be a balance of off-screen and on-screen activities for the students who are working remotely. But we're working to build in everyday, consistent midday check-in for students. So, all right, I had my morning check-in with my teacher. I know what my math assignment was. I've got a live instructional video that I'm going to watch, but I thought I was good, but then it turned out that I wasn't. So they can check in with a teacher at about the midway point of the day in some live capacity. And then we're looking to, in some cases, be able to have like a checkout. So there's going to be a combination of live, synchronous, and asynchronous learning, both online and offline, while students are home. I know that was a lot of words and a lot of buzzwords, but I promise that we're going to give you more information. I hope that that's a good kind of in a nutshell for you.
All right, I think I've got the next one. So these questions were also related to teaching and learning. What will the school be providing for students for both in-person and remote learning? And what will parents need to provide? So we will be providing everyone with devices, and I'll get to that in just a moment, referring to on-screen, off-screen activities. We will also be providing you with a list of supplies that you can provide for your student. I know typically those may have gone in June with a placement letter, but obviously we haven't been able to finalize the placements yet, so those will be going real soon. Also that weekly activities for offline assignments. So certainly there'll be that opportunity to log in through a device and connect with the teacher, but we will also have offline activities provided as well. We know that that's really, really important. We will have face coverings available for everyone who comes to school and school supplies as needed. So there isn't a need to go out and shop. Also, we will be asking home to provide snacks as well as lunch if you're not purchasing one from school. Masks, if your child has a mask that they prefer to wear. Obviously, backpack for student belongings and a refillable water bottle. Again, we will have all of those materials that a student will need to be successful in their day. So just wanted to make sure everyone knew that. Also, next is about technology. What computers will be used for instruction? What software will they have? And when will we be able to pick one up? So we are providing Chromebooks for all students in the district. We are going to be using the Google Apps for Education. Every student has a Google account. We will also be using Seesaw for K-5. And for our students at 3-5 last spring, we did turn on and enable Gmail with certain limitations and obviously a lot of education around how to use Gmail successfully to communicate with your teacher. We'll have some more information coming soon around laptop distribution. But for those who are curious, August 27th for our 4th grade families and Cohort C at the K2 level. August 28th for our 5th grade families and Cohort C at the K2 level. 3rd grade students will get their devices when they come on September 8th. For both Cohort A and B, all 3rd grade students are coming to Wentworth on September 8th. So they'll get their devices on that day. And then Cohorts A and B students at the K2 level will receive their devices on their transition day.
All right, so another question was about allied arts or specials. And yes, they will be different. We are not able to say, okay, it's time to go to music class and have students go down to a different room with a different teacher and have music class. So the music teacher will be coming to classes, the art teacher will be coming to classes at K2, and it may be a little bit different at 3-5. But yes, they will be different, and we are still hammering out those master schedules. So your child, if in kindergarten, may get PE and art the first trimester, but may not get music until second trimester. Please know we're working hard to make all of those things as equitable and fair as possible for everybody. And at some point, every child will get every special, but they may not get it immediately in the first trimester. And I don't know whether 3-5 wants to add anything to that, but yes, they will be a little bit different, but they are still being offered, and we're doing the best we can to make sure that those content areas are covered and delivered, because they are important and they are vital to kids loving school and being able to do something creative. How will academic levels be assessed once students return to school, either in person or remotely? Similarly to the way they are now. Again, things are a little bit different K2 and 3-5, but a lot of our assessment is individualized. So with a small cohort of students in a class on Monday and Tuesday, or on a different group on Thursday and Friday, teachers will be able to meet one-on-one with students and assess their progress and assess their abilities and things. We will still be using the same curriculum, and we will still be using iReady to both assess student progress and to monitor their growth, and as well as a lot of other ways, but that's some of the ways that we'll be assessing students. As for assessing them just when they get back to school, we're going to take time to do some reacclimation and re-entering and adjustment time, transition activities, and then we'll be able to start assessing where they are compared to where they left us back in March.
So how are academic support services going to be delivered this year? It will likely be a blend of in-person and remote instruction for academic support. We recently met with our academic support teachers to talk through what that's going to look like. Their schedule is dependent on our master schedule, so we are working hard to make sure that all of that is in place as soon as possible. But again, our academic support program is really based upon student needs and what their individual goals are. So we will make sure to meet every student's individual needs with academic support programming. We are going to have staff that coordinate both on-site and off-site academic support services. And all of our screeners will be similar to what we've used in the past.
We're going to ask Allison Marchese, our Director of Special Services, to speak to this next question.
For discipline?
Nope, just kidding. The next one after that.
And Allison, if you would like to cover that, it's totally fine. I'll answer the question on how will discipline be handled with students who don't follow safety guidelines. So it's so important to us at the K-5 level that everything that we respond to is developmentally appropriate for the student. There's a difference between taking off your mask because you feel like you can't breathe, or you're having a little anxiety, or you just are so hot, and taking your mask off and throwing it and saying, I don't want to wear this anymore. So we're going to respond to all situations with patience and kindness and gentleness towards our youngest learners. The Wentworth has a respect code, and all of us are going to be reiterating that wearing a mask is for your safety, keeping physical distance is for your safety. We believe so strongly that our students can handle this, and we know that they're going to be able to do this to the best of their ability.
Okay, well, I know a little bit about this topic, Cohort D. If my student is in Cohort D, when will I know their schedules, and can services be in person and or remote, as well as who is included in Cohort D? So as was stated earlier, all students are assigned to an A, B, or C cohort group. For students who receive additional specialized services outside of the general classroom program, we want to do our best to make sure we provide those services and give an opportunity for those services to happen in person. So, for example, a student who has special education services, if we can provide them in a reasonable fashion in the 2 days they're in for A and B cohort groups, we would do that. But for students who require more time to receive all of their IEP services, we are also offering the opportunity to come into school and to receive those services in person on one or all three of their non-cohort days. So, so for example, a student who has reading and writing in the resource room every day, clearly we can't do that just in 2 days. So students would have the opportunity to come back to school for reading and writing on the other 3 days. Of course, parents have the option to have their special services remotely. They also have the option to have them in person on their cohort A or B days and remotely on their other 3 days. So we want to be flexible and meet the needs of the family, but we also want to be a district that can offer in-person services for our kids. Well, we've heard a lot about the schedule, and you have heard that K-5 is still working on their master schedule, so there's a bit of a domino effect. We have started working on our special education services, and we hope that those will be out next week to parents. And I know you've had a lot of communication with myself and with your case managers, and on the surveys, some individualized requests, and we're taking those into consideration. And we hope to communicate to you a draft of what your child's schedule can look like, and then we'll make adjustments as you request.
Okay, just to let everybody know, I have the last 2 questions before we are able to turn it over for our hand-raised questions. So whether that gets people excited or not, I don't know. Will students be penalized if they cannot access remote learning due to lack of access at childcare? How will this impact their grade? So I know we've had a lot of questions about this, particularly at the K2 level, but I know there are some students at 3-5 as well. We know that some students are going to be in childcare settings where they may not be able to access their education on their, off cohort days or on their remote days. And the short answer to this question is no, we're not going to penalize them. All the logistics of that haven't been worked out. We understand that there's a need for flexibility. We are going to work hard to provide asynchronous options that students can access at other times. So if they want to work on something on the weekend or later that day, that they will be able to do that. So we're going to work with families to make that work for students. And I think, as you heard before when Kelly was speaking, things are going to be more predictable than they were in the spring. And, we may be able to work with more childcare settings to make that work than was possible in the spring. So we're hoping that more kids will be able to access, but we understand if they can't. It's not their fault. So for students who selected 100% remote for the first trimester, I know a lot of parents want to know if they're able to change the second trimester, how will that work in terms of placement? And so all of the administrators on this panel have thought a lot about that and in trying to make balanced classrooms and make things work for kids. So essentially, what's in our minds right now is based on numbers and teacher matches at that time in December, we would be looking at replacing those students who are in that C cohort back into the A and B cohorts. So, it's as simple as that. I'm just going to make our best matches that we can.
Okay, so we've just run through 33 slides with you and a multitude of questions. I'm sure that you are all shipshape, but if that is not the case, I see that we have a couple panelists with the hand raised feature, and we'll be able to actually bring you in to speak and ask your question because we are at the open Q&A portion of this presentation. So Jessica, I see 3 people with hands raised.
Our first person, I'm going to unmute you, is Mindy Byer. Go ahead.
And Mindy, you just need to unmute yourself. So you've been brought in to speak. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you guys all for your work throughout the last few months. You guys have done an amazing job. You've got a lot covered, and I'm very proud of the work that you guys have done. My question is this. So my son is cohort A. I'm high risk, and I understand that the numbers are 90 something to 60 something. So that's a significant 1/3 difference in my world. Being high risk as a mom and my son being in cohort A, I'm concerned about that. And I'm wondering if there's ability to kind of work with those numbers and work with you guys to look at that, balance it a little bit better.
I can speak to that. So what we did was, unfortunately, our students don't all perfectly fall classroom by classroom at the exact middle of the alphabet split. We just don't balance our classrooms that way. So we did the best that we could by honoring parent-specific requests. So we started with the alphabetical list by each classroom, draw that cut line at, J or K or wherever it was, and then literally look child by child at what the specific requests were. Oh, it must be cohort B because, transportation, childcare, etc. It was a painstaking task, but one that, was worth doing well for families. So that's why it didn't perfectly balance because of childcare needs and because the alphabet didn't perfectly balance, quite honestly. That said, Mindy, I'll say that there certainly is still flexibility. I would say sooner than later, if you email your child's principal and say, say cohort, can my child move to cohort B for this reason? I saw Diane's hand shoot up as soon as I said that, though.
Yeah, no, I think that is absolutely fine. But I also wanted to just clarify that just because you have 96 cohort A students coming, that doesn't mean that your one child is part of a cohort of 96, right? Our classes are being built at half or less than half of the size of a typical class. And so the contacts that your son or daughter would be coming into contact with would not be 96. Because as we think about the discrimination between casual contacts and close contacts, remember close contacts are those folks that we're around within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes.
So let me just follow up with a quick question then. Could I talk to, it looks like Kelly we're going to Wentworth, and Mrs. Crosby would be our principal. Could I get more information on specifics for my child at this time?
All students will be in a classroom with 12 or fewer, all at once. That's how many we could fit. But I've written down your name and we can certainly follow up, Mindy.
Thank you. This is
Our next person is Winnie Lee.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Will movement breaks, since kids are encouraged to stay in the classrooms as much as possible. And normally they're going from space to space, which automatically introduces movement breaks. How are you guys going to do that? Will that be done?
Yes, I can take this. Hold on. Okay, I had to mute you, Winnie. So movement breaks and mask breaks are going to be a really important part of how we operate in our school day. So, they can be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they can be outside. As long as students are more than 6 feet apart, they could be inside. So it's absolutely critical that our students are able to get up, move around, and have a break from wearing the mask. For anyone who has worn one for more than 30 minutes or so, you really want to take the elastic off and just get a deeper breath. So we fully understand that that's going to be a need for our students, and we'll work that in throughout the day into their schedule. Next question is Heidi Seeley.
Hi guys, thanks so much for all your time. I appreciate it. I have quite a few questions, but I'll just stick with one for now. I can maybe come back on later. I'm still really unclear about what happens if a child or a teacher tests positive. I get from the CDC guidelines that the distinction between the close contact and the non-close contact. Who's making the determination as to who else has to quarantine, and kind of how quickly is that determination going to be made?
Can speak to that if you'd like. So our school nurses are going to be working really closely with the CDC in terms of if there is a case that we become aware of a student or a staff member or anyone in our building, any of our buildings testing positive. And they have been working steadily through the summer with our school physician. They have been meeting weekly with the Department of Education school nurse for guidance and closely becoming more familiar with the protocols and expectations. And so these are not going to be cases that we're going to be looking at each other and saying, what do we think we should do? There is a very clear protocol from the Department of Education about how we need to handle those. And then what is the process for determining the contacts. The CDC will be the folks who will be making the determinations about who needs to be contacted in cases of contact tracing, and you would be hearing from them about that, and they would be providing us guidance in terms of the steps, in terms of how long someone might need to isolate from school, etc.
So it's not just a blanket, one kid in the class tests positive, therefore the entire classroom has to quarantine. It's a much more nuanced response.
It really is, because again, there's a whole list of questions that the CDC is going to ask. So, for example, just because you and I might be in a classroom together, if you think about the distancing in the classroom and I am 18 feet away from you all day long, I may not be on your list of close contacts. That will be, the level of information that we'll be providing. And that's why, as we even consider transportation, we will be having seating charts on our buses so that we have the most definitive information that we can as often as possible, because we also understand that from a parent perspective, we don't want to unnecessarily be having huge groups of folks out if there really hasn't been that standard of close contact met.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is Andrea Pettit. You can unmute.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my question. I have two questions. The first one is with regards to the group, the C group. Will they have their own individual online teacher, or is it a teacher in the classroom who's cross teaching?
I can take that one. So currently, and I believe we're all consistent in this, we are planning for them to have their own teacher. Our instructional plan that we came up with, we felt that that would serve students the best, to have a dedicated teacher. So we are in that's part of the process that we're going through in sorting through those cohorts and sorting through the staff information that's coming in. But a dedicated teacher for that group is our current plan.
And my next question is about the first week of school, where the kindergartners were supposed to have their scheduled appointment to come in for their testing and their screenings. And somebody had made mention that there would be more of a group atmosphere during that time because you're not going to do the screenings right off. When are we going to get those dates and times? Because work schedules are getting packed and they're kindergartners and they're going to need a lot of help while they're home. So I would like those sooner than later so that I can block off my schedule and be prepared for that.
So we have a proposal that's going to the school board tomorrow night. So we don't want to share something that isn't approved by the board. Currently, what your commitment would be an appointment, right, for your student on one of those days. And what's being proposed would be a little bit more. Your student might come to school for part of that day for a little bit of an experience. So we're hoping to get that proposal shared with the board tomorrow night and approved, and then be able to share that with you by the end of the week.
And you can watch the school board meeting tomorrow night to get those details.
Okay, hot off the press.
Yeah, hot off the press. All right, Kelly.
Yes, it is 5:30 now, which was our end time. And I know that Diane and Allison and Sandy have another parent meeting to get to. So if you folks want to hop off to get to your next meeting, we understand, and thank you so much for coming to support and answer the questions from our K-5 parents. It's really appreciated. And for K-5 parents who want to stay on, I see that there are 6 hands raised at this point. So the principals can stay on and do our best with answering those final 6 questions. If anyone does have to leave, because this is our end time, we are going to share this presentation with you. So there are links to resources at the end of the presentation. You can go back and review the questions. And there are some upcoming dates and wrap-up items as well. So Diane, Sandy, and Allison, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with the middle school forum. And anyone who would like to stay for these final 6 questions, you are more than welcome to.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Our next question is Betsy Collinsby.
Hi there. Thank you for all your hard work. This format has answered so many of my questions. My big one that I have for now is that my husband and I we both have to work in person. So it was a pretty stressful and heavy lift to organize childcare for this schedule. If things were to change significantly in Maine or in Cumberland County, do you envision any scenario where the kids might go back more days a week, but yet still not full time? Because then that would be another wrench in our childcare plans.
Do you mean like half days or something like that, Betsy?
Yes, I've heard that some other districts have a plan to like phase in more time as the marking period progresses. And so I was just wondering if that may be in the works, or if it would just go from the current hybrid schedule to hopefully back to 5 days a week full time if we ever get there.
Yeah, that's not something that we have discussed as a district at all. Quite frankly, again, it would have to be that the physical distancing requirements were lifted in order to add any more kiddos in. So there's no phase room for us, if you will.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Betsy.
Next is, we have Tim Leach.
Yes, thank you. I just had a question. I kind of piggybacked off from a previous question with the reference to somebody who comes up positive, and this is more in a student's reference. With COVID, not everybody has the same symptoms. Some have lighter symptoms, some get hit real hard. Would students that end up having a positive test, what is the plan to educate them during their quarantine period? Are they going to switch to a directly remote learning for the time that they are in quarantine, or are they just going to be considered sick days for 14 days? I'm more worried about kids being missed for the 14-day quarantine period. That will really set them behind in their education, behind everybody else who's been going for those 14 days.
Yeah, we've talked about that a bit. And I think as symptoms allow, if somebody has, a mild headache and a runny nose, but can still tune in for their remote learning, by all means, that would be wonderful. Obviously, if they're too ill to attend to any of their remote learning, then we would catch them up later, just like we always do, when a kiddo gets the flu or something like that and is out for an extended amount of time.
So on their live days, like my kids will both be going on Thursday, Fridays, they're part of Cohort B. On those days, what would they do to cover the factor that, say they, knock on wood, never get it, but if they did get it, what would they do educationally? Do you guys contact us and switch us to a remote? Do they move to the classroom where the remote teacher is, or?
No, they would stay right with their same cohort, their same group, but they could, while they're live, there is a group that's remote, so they would just do that remote work with the office.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, great question.
Next is Todd Zika.
Just real quick, has there been much communication between the schools? I don't want to say unfortunately, but unfortunately, I have one student in three different schools right now. Has there been much communication between the schools? Because so far I've gotten a response back from Wentworth, and I got a response back from the middle school. I'm still waiting to hear from the high school, but unfortunately, I've gotten different answers for my requests. I had requested a cohort A, and I did get A for middle school. I got B for Wentworth, and I'm still waiting to hear back on the high school. So I don't know, with the idea that my high schooler is going to be most likely providing daycare for us. So I just wasn't sure if there's any considerations as far as accommodating for that.
No, for sure. We combed through it. It was really tricky, Todd, because requests came from the survey. They went to different schools. Some families, like mom put in one request, dad put in another request. Some families emailed one school and not the other. So if there was an error on our part, just contact us. And I'm going to make a note right now that to look at your kiddo, and we'll be in touch tomorrow.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I think the biggest issue we're going to run into is the high schooler and what their schedule allows.
Sure.
Like I said,
I think that they're doing it pretty straight alphabetical, is my understanding. So.
Okay. I did reach out to them as well, because like I said, I think that's going to be the deciding factor. But again, thanks for taking the question. It was more specific to my issue as opposed to everyone else's. But again, thank you.
Sure.
I'm going to go with a couple people that haven't had a question in, and I'll go to those who are asking a second, if that's okay. So Brittany Frisco, you are on.
Hi guys, thanks for taking my question. I just was wondering if you could speak a little bit to with Cohort A and Cohort B, are they going to have just one teacher right now that is providing all the learning, the remote and in person? Just one teacher on their own doing this?
Oh, do you want to take that one, Ann?
I'm happy to. I don't.
Go for it.
Okay. So yes, there'll be a teacher. If I'm a second grade teacher, I'm going to have a classroom of 18 children, and 9 of them will come on Monday and Tuesday, and 9 of them will come on Thursday and Friday, and I will be responsible for all of them, both offline and online. If I'm 100% remote, there'll be a different teacher. So that's how that's being being divided up.
So that one teacher then will ultimately at one point have, say, 9 children in the classroom and 9 children on the laptop. Is that kind of the picture I'm getting here? Like you said, like the 9, 10 everyday check-in. Is that kind of what a classroom would be looking like?
Yes, there would be very specific scheduled times that will be live within the classroom, where there's cohorts of children in the classroom and people at home learning remotely who can log in and be a part of the conversation, be a part of the activity, and be live. It won't be an unending live stream for 6.5 hours. It will be very scheduled, determined times, predictable, so that it can be scheduled into your at-home remote days as much as possible.
Okay, and thank you. And kind of on that, I know I kind of know a little bit, but I think it would be helpful for those who are listening. Should a teacher not be able to come in, they're at home, they're quarantined, and we don't have the substitute, what would happen in that situation?
I can take that one. Brittany, we obviously look to maximize our staffing as much as we can, and sometimes we have to think creatively in that situation. It's obviously going to be a different year, and so part of our work that we do with our staff in the beginning will be not only around these different protocols and getting our classrooms ready for safety and managing, a digital group and a group in front of you, but if we do have that situation, we'll think creatively. Certainly, we hope to have subs. We hope to include our subs sort of as district subs in our training so that they're ready to go, quickly. But we'll think creatively and look at our staffing by building and by phase level as needed.
Okay, well, thank you guys very much. I do have other questions, but I'm going to save them for tomorrow's board meeting, so I don't take all your time, but I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Next is Amanda Anderson. Amanda, you might be on mute. All right, we will come back to.
I was just going to say, Amanda, if this is an 8-quarter specific question, please contact me at school tomorrow and we can talk.
We can come back to you, Amanda. Next is Kristen Vogel.
Hi, thank you. So my question is about the when a child is sick, not COVID sick. I mean, kids are still going to get colds and flus. Me and my daughter both just had a cold that would have excluded us from going to school, but based on what we've been given. So is the same thing if you have a cold symptom and you can't come to school? Do you have to stay home for 14 days again, or can you go get a COVID test, and if you're negative, come back to school, or what's the protocol there?
I don't know the exact answer to that. Our nurses, and I know our school physician is going to be at the board meeting tomorrow night, so that would be a great question for that. I do know that I have heard the nurses say that they are going to assume that those symptoms are COVID, when kids are in the building, because we aren't going to know. So I know that there will be more communication and more education coming from our school nurses to parents that will answer those questions. I apologize that we don't have all of, we are not the experts in that field.
Okay.
Anne, do you have something to add?
Well, I just wanted to add that I think that depending on the symptoms, once you are fever-free and symptom-free for 24 to 48 hours, you're no longer considered contagious. So I think it depends on your symptoms and whether you do get a COVID test or not, and those kinds of things. So it'll be a case-by-case basis, and you'll work with your school nurse to determine when it's safe to return to school.
Okay, thank you.
Just to reiterate the earlier gentleman's question that, if a kiddo has a cold and is staying home out of an abundance of caution, we can still have that child subscribe to the remote work so that they're not falling behind. But I know that it poses a childcare hardship, and I genuinely feel that.
Bethany Jensen.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I just want to reiterate what some of the other parents have said. This has been a Herculean task, and I really appreciate all the hard work you've done. I do have just a clarifying question. I hope I'm not the only parent who's confused about this. So, for example, I have a 5th grader at Wentworth. He's in Cohort A. He'll be coming to school Monday and Tuesday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there will be periods of time where he is expected to attend like an in-person Zoom type meeting with the entire class, correct? And then other times during the day, he'll be doing independent practice work, correct? So I think it was Brittany that had asked about this. If he is in a supported childcare type program, I should be making sure that he has access to his laptop so that in that childcare program, 10 o'clock, he needs to Zoom in with his classmates, he's able to do that. Is that correct?
Yes, but we understand fully that some providers will not be able to accommodate that request. So we just want to make sure that parents know that if they can't log in, that they're not punished, they're not penalized. And really those check-in times are around that SEL piece. So it's a morning meeting, it's a, how's everybody doing before we start lunch? So we wouldn't want you to think that he's going to be missing some kind of direct instruction piece, and that's why we've got this combination of synchronous and asynchronous instruction happening. So again, just please don't think that he's going to be missing all kinds of really super important, oh my gosh, stuff if it can't happen. We'll work with you and him.
We do have a daily attendance piece though, and so our thinking was that, logging in for that morning meeting, if that, if there's one thing that can really happen that day, I would say that 9:10 to 9:40, I think that we were consistent all across K-5, or maybe you guys were at 9. And 9 to 9:45-ish in that window. And then we'll give you those specific times. Like that's really critical because that's your check-in with your class. That's attendance, and that's like, here's the plan for the day, guys.
Gotcha.
And setting them up for success.
I would also add that we will have hotspots available for families, and that I would venture to say that those hotspots would be available. Let's say that you had a home daycare or something that was struggling for access, that would be available for a student who may needed help accessing school on those days. So, we're going to do whatever we can to help students access school on, whenever they need to.
Great. Thank you so much. That answered my question.
So we have 6 more questions and we're going to close it out after that. So I'm going to call out the names of those people so you know who you are. I'll be calling Mindy, Ethan, Heidi, Catherine, and Sheila. So if you are not one of those 6 people, we will be happy to take your question via email and anything else. All right, Mindy, go ahead.
Thank you guys again. So I heard you say that you're going to staff 2 healthcare clinics per area, per school. My child has gotten regular meds over the last 3 years that he's been in school, and he has gotten them from administration and different things. So nurses have not been, or medical assistants have not been available to give him his meds. So my question is, how are we going to staff that as Scarborough to staff those 2 clinics per school?
So Bram, you want to answer this one? For Ann?
I'm happy to. We have hired more nurses, quite honestly, Mindy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We are planning to have an RN full-time in each of the K2 buildings, and Wentworth already has a full-time RN and an LPN, I believe, on staff full-time. So that is how we're doing it. And our office folks are very competently tended to our clinics when there was nobody there will still help out in that, because there's still going to be one person for two clinics in each building. So
I agree. You guys have been awesome in helping out, and you've been wonderful. I just am asking, and thank you. And I'm glad to hear that Scarborough has been able to do that. And once again, I'm proud of you guys and the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mindy. Ethan, you're up next.
Hi, I'm actually not Ethan, I'm Sarah, but
Sarah?
my question is about Cohort D. I have a child who's going to be attending in Cohort D, and my question is, how does he access, if he's on Monday, Tuesday, the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if he's attending school for special services, how does he attend his general ed classes that are happening kind of remotely?
So because those classes are, well, first of all, each child in Cohort D is going to be hand and individually scheduled. So the remote coursework could look like, you know, your kiddo on his non-in-person days comes for his reading instruction in the morning, and then maybe goes home to access the remainder of his courses. Or we may be setting up some, for lack of a better term, like a structured study hall for families who don't have that flexibility of schedule, for the child to stay here because they had to come in person for Cohort D reasons, stay and complete the rest of their online remote work. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you.
Heidi. Heidi, you are on mute. Heidi?
I'm sorry, guys. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great, thanks. Are face shields being provided as part of the PPE for the staff?
Yes.
And they can wear those instead of the masks if that's better.
Well, you could wear a face shield if you have a health reason not to wear a mask, but the face shields are being provided to wear in addition to the masks. Because,
okay, so sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, because, you know, staff are supposed to be 6 feet from students. And in elementary school, we know that that is not always going to be realistic, because we've got young children who are going to cry and going to need something from us. So we're recommending that we want to provide the opportunity for teachers to interact with students in as many ways as possible. So we're providing that PPE, masks and face shields. There will also be, I'm forgetting the word. It's not plexiglass, but what is it? Is that what it is? Little barriers on the teachers. I'm really tired. It's been a long day. On the teacher's desk or somewhere in the room, so that you know, if they want to confer or consult with a student, that there's an additional barrier. You know, that so they don't have the face shield on. Maybe they just have a mask, and the student's coming over and talking to them. So we want to have options for teachers to feel safe and to have, you know, interactions with students that feel natural, but are also safe. Because we know that being 6 feet apart is not always going to feel right.
Got it. And this might be a question more specifically directed to Kelly for my specific child, but I know for the hard of hearing students, having their teachers wear masks, especially on the videos, is going to be really difficult. So we can certainly talk about that more directly, but that's
Kelly
definitely an
MM
issue.
Yeah, Heidi, Kelly is holding up we got clear masks for staff for when they're providing instruction to students. So that's the mask, and then there's a clear face shield too. So you can see faces and lips.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. And then my last question, and I'll mute for this one. Has the teachers union kind of signed off on all of this? And this might be more of a school board question. And if that's the case, I can ask tomorrow, but I just wonder about teacher input on all of these plans.
Probably a more school board question. There has been like a meet and consult with the SEA all along on our plans. And also the START committee that we've mentioned multiple times had representatives. We had over 90 stakeholders on the START committee, and that was really in designing these return to school plans. So there was not only school leaders and central office administrators, teachers, union representation, and community members, parents, and students. It was really awesome. So it's been a really great collaborative effort, and we feel confident in the plans, and we're hopeful that we've been able to convey that confidence. But that's
great. Thank you.
A specific school board question.
I would also add one more thing to that, that as we have begun to do some of the detail work, all of us have included our teachers in that process and sent invitations to participate. You know, they're currently not required to work. They're on summer vacation. So it's been an invitation and optional experience for them. And we've had a lot of staff who have engaged with us over these last few weeks to help out on all of these nitty gritty pieces. So we're super grateful to them for that.
Just another example, there's a K-12 curriculum committee coming together tomorrow. All of us today had our lead teacher meetings, and our leadership team and teacher leaders came together to really like vet and question and help formulate finalized plans. So yeah, we feel confident about it. Good question though, Heidi. Thank you.
Catherine.
All right, am I unmuted now? Okay. My question, I know I've talked with Anne earlier in the month regarding a corner specifically, but as we were talking now more as the cohort C full remote has kind of been developed a little bit more. You guys talked a lot about how, you know, that daily attendance at between 9 and 9:45. Well, I have a 3-year-old with an IEP that requires to be dropped off for her speech and her side of things at 9:15, which means my daughter, my 6-year-old, would either be left home alone, which is not an option. So with those full remote students, when there are those other factors, you know, what is that? Is it going to be working with the teacher specifically? Because having to be on that 100% synchronous time schedule does not work for me.
There is no 100% synchronous time schedule. You will not be expected to do that. So if you're 100% remote, you will have that group of students will have their own dedicated teacher, and that will be a different schedule than it would be if they were sharing a hybrid cohort of students.
Okay.
So that teacher will work more individually with that group of students to say, when is a good time for all of us to get together? And, you know, maybe there'll be 3 times during the day that opportunity allows itself. So yeah, it will be very different.
Okay, I just, you know, with the conversation you and I had, that's how it went. But then listening tonight, it was more like, oh, we want that 9 to 9:45 and that morning meeting time. So I just wanted to make sure that wasn't across the board.
And just to clarify, that's for our hybrid learners that we're really hopeful that time. And obviously on a case by case, if that's not going to work because someone else has to be in the car for something, then we're going to work with you.
Okay, I just don't want to feel like my daughter is missing getting an attendance box checked, because that seems really, really generic and out there just for that time period when all of this right now is totally up in the air.
Right. That's not going to be our priority as attendance checks, you know. So please don't worry about that.
Thank you.
And our last question is Sheila Berggren.
Hi, everyone. So my question just revolves around the technology piece. So if we have children that are attending school on Monday and Tuesday and then home the rest of the week, are they going to be required to bring their laptops back and forth to school during those times? Because I'm assuming that paper passing is going to be minimalized.
So I'll start and Brim, you jump in, okay? So
Sure.
yes, they are going to be bringing your laptops back and forth to school. There is a charger that will stay at home, so they don't have to carry that. We're getting cases, and we're crossing our fingers that they're in time for the laptop deployment, but everybody in the world wants laptop cases right now, apparently. So they will be bringing it back and forth, but we've really made a commitment, and we're going to be working with our staff on when they are in person to really minimize that screen time, because they're having a lot of screen time on their remote days. So Brem, I'll have you hop in from there.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what you shared, Kelly, and just I think it's all about balance. Even on the remote days, we don't want kids home and just in front of a screen all day. So we're going to try and have, they might bring their math workbook home so that they can participate in an asynchronous recorded lesson and then have that time to do that practice. I think that's going to obviously, we have to take into account the developmental stage of the learner, because it can be very different K2 versus 3-5. Hopefully that answers your question.
It did, yeah. And actually, you already answered my second part about bringing workbooks and other materials back and forth, just to make sure that they're not always on their devices, to kind of give them that break. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great questions, everyone. So Anne, are you able to just share your screen one more time and show that wrap up slide for those who are still with us? We're down to the loyal 44 and whoever else is on a YouTube live. So again, we'll make this available to everybody. So there's some upcoming dates and wrap up. Placement communication, we're working on that as fast as we can. We know that that's a big one for kiddos. And then some laptop pickup dates. So fourth graders, and again, more detail is coming on the 27th, fifth graders on the 28th, and our third graders on the first day of school. And the plan right now is for all of our K2 kiddos to get their laptops when they are in person. So tune into the board meeting for more details about that and more communication coming soon. We'll make this presentation available to you. We've gone about a half hour over, but I hope that you found this time valuable. We've enjoyed collaborating to bring this information to you, and we appreciate your engagement very much. And good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Take care.